This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Sahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwall Podcast.
Welcome to episode 384 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about Borussia Dortmund's very comfortable 3-0 win against Wien Wiesbaden in the German Cup. The Bundesliga starts again against Eintracht Frankfurt, where I'll be joined by Brian Sanders from the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt Podcast. And of course, we will briefly chat about what we will expect of the season. So this is sort of the season preview episode. So if you will, even though I feel like it's hard to preview the season if the transfer window is still not shut. So maybe we'll do another more extended one after the international break. But yes, for all that and more, I am joined by Matthias Zug, who, as we pointed out on the last episode, is starting with me into the 10th Bundesliga season.
Yeah, that's a little crazy. But thankfully that DFB Pokal match was not crazy. But good to be here, Stefan. How are you?
I'm very good. As I said before, the little vacation I had did me worlds of good. Obviously, I also came home with about 50 mosquito bites, and I'm still itching. But otherwise, no, Cape Cod is very decent. It's not as hot as Philadelphia, I must say, and it's really kind of swampy here right now, so cannot recommend. But what I do recommend is sponsoring our episodes, like the next two sponsors.
Wir sind komplett schuldenfrei, wir zahlen keinen einzigen Euro an Zinsen.
Because we are sponsored by Jordan Hunt once again. And he wants you to follow him on Twitter, of all places, because he says he has 990 followers. I just checked on Twitter. Hunt_1909 is his Twitter handle. Please give Jordan a follow. Longtime Yellowwallpod listener, good follow to have. And we're also sponsored by the Borussia Dortmund Fan Club London podcast for the BVB perspective from the island that can be found at mcfadgen.podbean.com. I will put the link in the show notes. If you want to be a sponsor of an episode, get a shout out to your fan club, your Twitch channel or whatnot, go to patreon.com/theyellowwall for more information. Now, Matthias, that we have the housekeeping out of the way, I would talk, I almost said briefly, but I don't know how much there is to say about the housekeeping that Dortmund did with Wien Wiesbaden. I will proudly admit that I got the 3-0 prediction completely correct. What did you make of this game? You may or may not have seen live. I admit I only saw the second half live because before that I was at the beach.
Yeah, I didn't see it live because ESPN sucks. For some reason they put it on ESPN 3, which is just the weirdest channel to put it on. I only have ESPN Plus. And so for once couldn't watch it live, so I had to get it through BVB TV. Shout out to the greatest football club in the world. And there's not much to be said for that match other than really, really, really comfortable. I can only remember one shot kind of needing to be saved by Kobel, and that was just a comfortable catch, really. It was.
I feel like there was a little set piece trouble at some point. Where...
Yeah, but not really. I mean, nothing where, let's just put it this way. I wasn't really worried during the course of the match. Dortmund were dominant. They probably should have scored one or two more goals. The Wiesbaden keeper actually played really well, which I know is weird to say since he was responsible for a penalty and conceded 3 goals. But, he pulled off an excellent save against Marco Reus from a free kick, and then an excellent save against Malen. And he was really unlucky with, I think it was Holland's 3rd goal, where he saved it, and then the ball just happened to fall perfectly for Holland, and then the keeper was out of position. So really, Dortmund could have won it 4 or 5-0, but I think 3-0 is fine. Nothing really of note. They set up in a 4-4-2 diamond, I believe, for most of it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of as expected. It was a nice way because they had, the kid, the new Papa in the back line. And it was probably a good way in a competitive match to put him in there without all the heat of the Bundesliga on him. And we kind of talked about that in the preview pod, that this is kind of the right place to get some of those players in there, to have Schulz playing on the left, to have Passlack playing on the right, and, kind of warm up that way before facing what I guess I overestimated Eintracht Frankfurt. I don't know, because, of course, they laid a massive egg in the DFB Pokal by losing to a fellow Drittliga club, Waldhof Mannheim. So Dortmund are better than Frankfurt by that logic, I think.
I don't know, because this cup match, it was the sort of game where Frankfurt had 72% possession and whatnot, and I feel like it's going to be a completely different game in the Bundesliga. But so I really hesitate to put too much into a cup slip up in the first round, especially with teams nowadays sort of planning the cup match sort of still as their preseason. So maybe legs were still a bit heavy. I'm not entirely sure how this goes, but I'm not going to take this with too much confidence looking forward to Saturday, to be honest. But what I really liked is the setup that Dortmund played. Obviously with Tigges and Haaland leading the line. I liked Marco Reus in behind, the 2-striker system, which is, I don't think, is something we haven't really seen that much. I think it can be really successful. Obviously, Dahoud as sort of the lowest point in the diamond, and Bellingham and Reina on the sides, I think, was pretty attacking minded, and I really liked that. I thought that the way Dortmund were set up, they had a lot of good channels also through the middle, where they had passing lanes, be it to Reina, to Dahoud, Akanji and Papadopoulos. I thought both had fairly decent passing distributions, and considering this is sort of all relatively new, I'll say relatively because it's not that different from what Dortmund played before, but nevertheless, even if it's against a team from the third division, I think it was encouraging to see Dortmund this free-flowing and let's say easygoing in the possession. I don't think they struggled too much to progress the ball from the back line. I don't think there was a gaping hole between the back four, if you will, and the midfielders, which is also very positive. So the spaces are not too distant. So all in all, I thought mostly it was positive. Even Nico Schulz had a really good game as a left back. For Nico Schulz's standards, I guess, have to grade him on the curve. He's not a Rafael Guerrero, but yeah, it was a good game. Felix Passlack on the other side did not impress me that much, to be honest. But, I thought Gio Reyna had a very positive showing, very ball hungry, demanded the ball a lot, which I think is positive. And yeah, did well with it. And then obviously Erling Haaland scoring a hat-trick, and with that making it 60 goals in 60 games for Borussia Dortmund. It's just an insane number. I was going to say we're almost used to it, but I don't think you can ever get used to it. And yeah, I really hope that he keeps his goal scoring average of 1 up for now. I was hoping for Stefan Tigges to get on the score sheet as well. I think he had a decent chance where there was a deflection in the box and he just put it wide off the net. Otherwise, it would have been, I think, his first team goal for Dortmund. So yeah, still waiting for that one. But yeah, the other thing I guess we can talk about is obviously when Daniel Malen came on playing next to Haaland, which was, I thought, nice because I honestly expected Rose to replace Haaland with Malen. Yeah, it was nice to see. You could obviously see right away his back heel play, and that he speeds things up. Lars Pollmann, I think in a previous episode also said that he sometimes likes to bottle high quality chances. He had one and did so. So we'll note that. But yeah, obviously it's just the first game. And I think overall in terms of just blind understanding, that was pretty good. Marco Rose at today's news conference obviously pointed out that he still has to adapt quite heavily, and mostly I think he said he needs to improve his physique. He, can get a little sturdier, I think is what Rose said, and obviously do more on the defensive side of things. So yeah, in those terms, I think we can all be very happy with the cup match. Moving on to the next round, unlike, of course, Eintracht Frankfurt. Matthias, if you don't mind, I would now just hit play on the pre-recorded, live on tape, if you will, interview with Brian Sanders, and then we'll be back on the other side to preview the game ourselves and then sort of have more of a general outlook on what this Bundesliga season may or may not bring. And I'm now joined by Brian Sanders from the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt Podcast to shed a little light on Saturday's Topspiel opponent. Obviously, Eintracht Frankfurt had a lot of heartbreak going on in the latter stages of last season, as they were leapfrogged by none other than Borussia Dortmund, as they missed out Champions League. And not only that, but due to Borussia Dortmund switching their coaches, Eintracht Frankfurt were part in that carousel and now have Wolfsburg's ex Oliver Glasner on the sideline, who have Mark van Bommel. So I think, yeah, it's still Wolfsburg who had the worst part of this, but I don't really care about Wolfsburg. Anyway, Brian, welcome to the show. How are you doing after quite a long?
Oh yeah, it's been man, this whole season has been one of the longest in my memory as an Eintracht fan. I think most of it is down to the sheer fact that, the way the season kind of ended. I mean, I haven't been this frustrated from an off season since we were last relegated, and those memories are pretty hard to bury. So I'll say this much: I'm ready to get the season kicked off because I want to forget about the Pokal.
Right. So obviously a lot of things have changed. Not only is Adi Hütter gone and you have Oliver Glasner now, but also Freddy Bobic is gone, who now is at Hertha Berlin. Sure, why not? And you have now RB Leipzig's Markus, I think is his first name, Krösche.
Yep, Krösche.
So
crushing it with Krösche. That's what we're gonna be up to. But to be fair, he came from a club where he had to count every single nickel, dime, and penny for those who use American currency. When he was at Paderborn, the guy got used to being able to have to make every single euro work. And now he's at another club where we have more euros to work with, but less than certain financially cheating fizzy drink companies.
Right.
Not biased about that at all.
I can't tell at all. So, obviously the first cup round didn't go too well. You lost 2-0 against Waldhof Mannheim, which is, I would have described it as like Dortmund losing to Bochum, but now that Bochum are in the Bundesliga, that comparison doesn't really hold too much anymore.
Or a certain team from Gelsenkirchen losing to Nuremberg, I think.
Yeah.
There's a very strong fan friendly vibe that basically gets thrown out the window when we play. But there's a lot of Mannheim fans who cheer for Eintracht because they are not in the Bundesliga. Though when I've come across one or two of them, I have told them, it's like, it wasn't that long ago that you were in the Bundesliga yourself. So you get back up here and play with the big boys instead of screwing around in the Dritte Liga.
Yeah, I would say Frankfurt and Mannheim are probably united in their hate against Offenbach and Kaiserslautern, if you will. So there's that.
Yeah, red is ugly. Red is ugly. Red and white teams, obviously not red, white, and black teams.
All right. I was gonna say, you gotta be very careful there. But so how's the mood going into this season at Frankfurt? Is basically the simple question I wanted to ask.
It is very optimistic for the future, and here's why. Look at what the coach has been able to do in his last 2 stops if you give him time. Now, I honestly believe if Glasner didn't have such a shaky relationship with his sporting director, I honestly kind of wonder where Wolfsburg will be able to take their team going forward, because they've got a pretty solid lineup of players who they had brought in. He was given time last Linz and made them able to outperform both of the Vienna clubs, which, those guys got a lot more money in the Austrian Bundesliga than anyone else that is not called Salzburg. And he went toe-to-toe with Salzburg. So when given time, he can make great things happen. But I watched his teams at Wolfsburg. They were pretty ugly to watch. They're not pretty on the eye. If there is one thing that the Eintracht has been known for under Niko Kovac, under Adi Hütter, it was a team that put 150% out on the pitch, and you just kind of wonder how this team is going to be molded with Glasner so far. We've had mixed results in our preseason test matches, and of course Mannheim, that didn't go so well, with 6 matches in the Europa League group phase that will be included. This is going to be an interesting season. I will say that most fans are not expecting to be chasing down a certain Munich-based team for the title. Let's put it that way.
Right.
We'll leave that to you guys.
Yeah, sure. Now, obviously, Oliver Glasner, I think he needed about his whole first season to really settle into Wolfsburg, and it only became successful in his second season at Wolfsburg. But then,
agreed,
I think his core strength was actually a lack of rotation. He had his sort of starting 11 and didn't make really many changes. So I would always wonder how he would handle, a European competition. Now, obviously, you just mentioned it, Eintracht Frankfurt are in the Europa League, which obviously is still a big success for the club, even though if you were aiming for the Champions League and then miss out for about 2 or 3 match days, that fucking sucks.
That run right before everything just dropped, the bottom just dropped. Thank you, Gladbach, for that. Well, a little thanks to you guys who
I was just going to say there are a lot of dominoes that fall.
Yeah, the first domino was pushed by yellow and black fingers, and then the Foles just happened to be the ones who then said, "Okay, Adi Hütter, we like some of this. Here we go," and well, duh. We end up in 5th, which was pretty demoralizing. But you know what? I'll look back on last season and think to myself, we had a long stretch where we weren't getting results, and then suddenly, in the spring, results started to happen. And I can look fondly back on thoroughly thrashing Bayern Munich, beating you guys as well, and Wolfsburg in back-to-back matches. I can look back on last season fondly enough that I can at least say to myself, you know what? Let's have a go at the Europa League, because we would have been crushed in the Champions League. I have no doubts that we probably would have finished bottom of our group, and I'd rather have our fans go and travel and see some wins as opposed to some losses.
Yeah, fair enough. So obviously you did lose your talisman striker Andre Silva, who scored a ridiculous amount of 28 goals in 32 matches last season, to the fizzy drink company. So right now I think you pretty much only have Paciencia up there, who returned from his Schalke loan, which did not go very successfully because I think he was injured for most part.
He was out a long time.
So my question is, Looking forward to Saturday, in what kind of shape is the team in? Who you think will play, and are there any significant injuries that you should note or that Dortmund fans should know about that could hinder Frankfurt's performance and maybe give Dortmund a little advantage?
So a couple of our newest signings you can possibly see on the pitch. So Rafael Santos Borre, we got him on a free transfer from Argentina. He had a spell in Spain, did not do so well, but he then went to the biggest of big clubs in South America and did extremely well for himself at every plate. He led the line against Mannheim, but he was marked out of the match pretty well. The guy has a tendency to kick if he does not get the ball. So, I mean, it's almost a good thing that Hummels will be, fit after the Frankfurt match, because he probably would just take out his vengeance on his weak ankles. So watch out for that. We
it's
have
the knee, though,
new,
that's bothering Hummels, but continue.
It's the knee? Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry, folks. I'm not up to date on every single injury for BVB. Anyway,
That's fine. Just listen back to the episode, then you'll know.
Yeah. Yes, Jesper Lindstrom, who we have from Brøndby, from Denmark. He's a pretty nifty player, quite tricky. And Jens Peter Haug just was signed earlier this week on loan from Milan. Another Scandinavian guy. This guy is Norwegian. I think he'll be a game time decision to see if he factors into the match. But for me, there is no other player that BVB should be, scared of than Filip Kostic. Kostic sat out of the Pokal because of a previous red card received in the last match in that competition. So he's going to be back. I'm really excited for the fact that no Italian club has got the money to be able to pay for him. And the only Italian clubs that seem to be linked these days are one of the Milan clubs, Inter Milan, who still need another sale to be able to fund a couple other moves because they are wage cutting like crazy. Kind of like how Schalke has and Bremen have had to do as they got relegated. Their owners are making them cut wages really bad. And both Rome clubs just can't seem to fork over the amount of money. Those are the only clubs that have been linked to Filip Kostic, so it looks like he will be sticking with the Eintracht. And, I mean, I will say this much as missing under Silva will hurt, without Kostic, Silva was a non-factor. So I kind of wonder how he will do in the old East. But for me, there's no player that is going to scare BVB fans more than Filip Kostic.
Yeah, especially since he will be barreling Dortmund's right side, and there are not really any fullbacks other than, I think, Felix Passlack. So, yeah. Dortmund will have a lot of fun with that. Obviously, Filip Kostic is always a threat, and obviously, considering that Hummels is out and Dortmund have only one healthy center back, one does wonder how Dortmund's defensive wall will hold up, to be honest. But more on that later, I guess.
Well, there's how many thousand fans are going to be allowed into the Westfalen Stadion?
I think 25.
There's got to be someone who's got good two legs that can just run that might be able to do a job if necessary.
Yeah, it's just the paperwork that might get in the way of getting him registered to the Bundesliga and whatnot. But it's obviously going to be a very interesting season for a lot of teams because of the coaching carousel, and there's just so much new stuff. And obviously, one of the factors you just mentioned that's also sort of new is that there are now fans in the stands again, even though it's not at full capacity yet. But nevertheless, it's something. Obviously, the active fan support, I assume, will still be lacking. I think that's certainly was the case for Frankfurt's game in Mannheim. I think, lastly, all I have left for you is to give a scoreline prediction and maybe what you think awaits Frankfurt in Dortmund.
Well, I would definitely say, especially knowing that so many of your defenders are out, and if anyone's curious of who is out for Eintracht, who probably would have been in the starting 11, it's only Eden Schustic who's out for the Eintracht. I'm really thinking that this Eintracht team is capable of doing a complete 180 and against a vastly superior opponent compared to Waldhof Mannheim. I think that the Eintracht have got a draw in them. I think that they'll be able to nick a goal early, but your own Scandinavian Wunderkid, I think, will almost have will be incensed at the thought of possibly losing the first match of the season, and I anticipate your own guy knocking one in at the very least. If I had to pick a goal scorer for the Eintracht, I would have to say that it's gonna be Kostic from a free kick. Why not?
I'll take it. All right. Thank you so much, Brian, for coming on. Please tell our listeners where to subscribe to the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt podcast yourself. You can be followed on Twitter at KCSGE.
That is correct. Yeah, you can follow us also on Twitter. That is at HEFPod. It's mostly Americans who are, and a couple of Germans who are on our Eintracht Frankfurt podcast. So if you want to have an occasional funny banter about what's going on in the Bundesliga, what's going on with one of the European participants, from the Bundesliga, and also excellent alcoholic beverages, should you be so inclined. We have great alcohol beverage recommendations that we put out on every episode of the podcast just to keep things light and breezy.
Well, make sure to tune in. I've been a guest occasionally as well. It's always good fun. And yes, you are always in demand to bring a beer or something. Anyway, that's it for now from Brian, and we shall be back with more Borussia Dortmund vs. Eintracht Frankfurt preview now. And we're back. It's still Matthias Zug and Stefan Butzko here at the helm. Now, Matthias, it is time to preview the first game of the Bundesliga season for Borussia Dortmund. It's a home match. We will have about, 25,000 fans in the stands. It's still going to be far off what a full capacity game is like, but nevertheless, that's an improvement to what's happened before. Obviously, what has been pointed out in the safety concept, if you will, were the 3 Gs, which means either you are geimpft, genesen, or getestet, which means either vaccinated, recovered, or tested. So, Matthias, putting that aside maybe, how excited are you for this game and for the season overall to start now that we had quite the off-season?
Well, I mean, first of all, the one thing I didn't mention about the cup match, it was great to have fans there again. I think that's good and encouraging to see, especially because, we don't know what the fall is going to bring, and, things are just so in flux all the time. But I'm excited to hopefully have a little bit more of a normal season, in the sense of there'll just be some fans in the stadium, which, okay, that's basically all that would be different from last season. I'm excited because it's finally matters again. I mean, the Euros, they were interesting, but I'm not that big on national team football anymore like I used to be. And so it's nice to have something of greater meaning starting again. Frankfurt is a club that I really like. I have a lot of sympathies for them. I used to live in the Frankfurt area.
Yeah, where didn't you live?
Where didn't I live? Yeah, good question. Well, in Germany, it was only like the Münsterland, Westfalen, and then Hessen.
No, yeah, just 3 places.
just 3 places. But it, I don't know. It'll be interesting because you tend to not really know what the first match day can bring. I mean, yes, Dortmund looked really good against a third-tier side. Eintracht Frankfurt lost against a third-tier side. That's a little bit of a narrative that goes in. Both clubs have new coaches now coming into the season that have a lot to prove. Yeah, I mean, as far as additions or losses to the squads, there are some, but it wasn't like some seasons with Dortmund where you feel like there was like half a team turnover. That's not the case this season. So, yeah, it's really exciting. I always like the first league match day just because of all of the unknowns and the excitement that's behind there. We'll talk again after 10 weeks, how I feel then, because you also get to gauge, especially when there's a new coach. You just kind of see what's going to happen. How is he going to perform in a match of higher importance than a cup match against a third tier side, and where there's significantly more eyeballs on him and more pressure on it. The audience will be bigger also on television. So yeah, I'm very excited to get the season going. How about you?
Yeah, I'm super pumped, to be honest. I don't know how else to put it. I think Dortmund will actually improve. Dortmund ended the season under Terzic quite well, also with a cup win. And the fact that Dortmund have Erling Haaland still, obviously they lost Jadon Sancho, but that plus having Marco Reus, who made the conscious decision not to go to the Euros, to be sort of fully fit now, and that's exactly what he is looking, makes me very hopeful for this season. Obviously, I'd be more hopeful if we wouldn't enter this season with 4 goalkeepers and 1 center back. But I think Rose said today that Mats Hummels is back in individual training, and he is doing a lot of workout, but he's still away from team training. I think there was this news that he will also miss the Super Cup, because don't forget, Dortmund also played the Super Cup on Tuesday against Bayern Munich. So yeah, Hummels will be out. I don't know for how long, to be honest. Might actually be a bit longer. That's the only thing that's a little annoying, I guess, that due to him playing at the Euros now, he has knee problems, because otherwise I don't think that would have been a thing. Dortmund obviously have a boatload of injuries and players that returned very late from the Euros, so it was a very tricky preseason, and I think we will, despite all the optimism, we will feel that not every single thing will work perfectly. I mean, I can rattle through the list of injured or unavailable players, starting with Julian Brandt and Thomas Meunier, who are both still out due to testing positive COVID-19. Nandi Collins is out with a knee injury. Koulibaly is still obviously a very young centre back, but he's still recovering from a knee injury. Guerrero has calf problems. Hummels I already mentioned. Then Morey obviously still recovering from his very severe knee injury. Marcel Schmelzer is still back in recovery training. I'm not sure whether and how much he will feature, but he's still out as well. So is Marius Wolf, who has this, I think it was a partly torn ligament in his ankle, and Zagadou is also still recovering after his knee surgery a few months ago. So yeah, it's a long list. Of course, Dortmund can still field a very strong team without all these players, to be honest. But nevertheless, I think having Brandt and Meunier, at least in this situation, would help a little bit more. Just because, I think Dortmund failed absolutely to replace Lukas Piszczek, and starting with Paslak next to Papadopoulos, I don't think is really ideal. And so yeah, Dortmund's backline is probably not going to be the strong point against Frankfurt. I don't think I'm too bold in making that statement. And Dortmund's bench also, I don't know, not the strongest. Obviously, we can probably bring on Delaney, we can bring on Can. Ranier is probably around as well after winning his gold medal. Witzel, Hazard, Knauf probably also on the bench, I guess, and Moukoko. And if I don't know if Tigges will be in the squad or not, but these are sort of the players that I expect to be on a bench. I must say though, I'm excited because I do expect Daniel Malen to have his first start. I think Marco Rose hinted at that today. So having Malen and Haaland for maybe 60 minutes or however long should be exciting. What are you expecting from Dortmund in this particular match? What are you hoping for, and what are you expecting them to actually deliver?
Well, I expect it to be an exciting match, an interesting match. Obviously, these are two coaches that know each other, be it from the Bundesliga in the last few seasons with Gladbach and Wolfsburg, but of course also in Austria, facing off against each other. And there's a lot to prove on both sides. For Marco Rose, what he needs to prove is that it was the right decision to go with him versus Terzic, who
I hope he gets a little more time than just the game against Frankfurt to prove that.
Yeah, but it's extra motivation for him. Oliver Glasner, of course, will have some motivation because, honestly, his debut sucked. I mean, that's about as bad a debut as you can have. I mean, it's not as embarrassing maybe as Mark van Bommel's debut, but it's really close to being as embarrassing. So there's going to be extra motivation there. I do expect, Dortmund to have most of the possession, most of the shots, because they're going to be playing against Glasner and an Eintracht Frankfurt side that isn't as good as Glasner's Wolfsburg side, which already enjoyed a more, how do I say this? I don't want to say passive approach to the sport, but let's call it a more defensively solid approach to the sport. I don't expect that to really change with Eintracht Frankfurt. Adi Hütter already liked counterattacking and pressing. Glasner's probably going to tone that down a little bit, would be my assumption. And they, being Dortmund fans in the stadium, the players, the press, the bosses, they want to see attacking, pressing, free-flowing football that they're hoping to get from Marco Rose, especially given how exciting it was in the last couple of months under Edin Terzic, leading to finishing third Champions League, and then, of course, winning the DFB Pokal. So there's going to be a lot of motivation. There's going to be a lot of motivation also for Erling Haaland to have finally have a breakout season. I mean, he's been kind of under the radar. I mean, 60 goals in 60 matches. That's kind of, okay, who hasn't done that? But, the assumption is this is his last season at Borussia Dortmund. So he wants to really, really do well before he can play with, I don't know, Messi at PSG or somebody in England. I have no idea. One of those clubs that I don't like. So that just has more money than they should. But the motivation is there, especially in front of fans again, which is an experience that a few of these Dortmund players, thinking of Bellingham and, of course, Erling Haaland, didn't really get to experience that much of during their Dortmund career so far, or really at all. So I expect a really fun and entertaining match from Dortmund, and I do expect Dortmund to win. I expect some Haaland goals, but it's not going to be an easy match because I am just very nervous about that back five. I am not nervous at all about Akanji, but I'm worried he's going to try too much because he's going to be put in a position where he may have to. He's got a very young, inexperienced center back partner next to him. He has the maybe second, third choice fullbacks on either side, and then a new keeper behind him that he's still learning. Granted, I know they're both Swiss, but Kobel is not starting for Switzerland. It's not like it's Jan Sommer back there. So in that case, I'm very nervous about that back line. I know Frankfurt aren't as strong attacking-wise as they maybe were of the last few seasons, theoretically, but I'm still concerned, especially because Frankfurt have always just been difficult for Dortmund in the last few seasons, last few years, regardless of who the coach has been. Even going back to Fey, it's just always been one of those difficult teams. So it's kind of one of those. Dortmund's going to win, but it's going to be exciting and occasionally a little nerve-wracking, is my opinion.
Yeah, I guess apart from Lindström and Boré in attack from Frankfurt, there's not really that much change. You know, if you look at the kickers' projected starting 11, it's Trapp in goal, Tuta, Hinteregger, and Dika in the back three, and Sohnrode in midfield, which is what they've been playing pretty much before. Obviously, Armin Younes should be a starter right now, but obviously it's not. And then you have Da Costa and Kostic on the fullback positions. Obviously, this is probably where most of the danger is coming from, and what Brian also alluded to. And then, of course, Kamada, who is a playmaker. I would say Lindström and Boré. Then up top, I don't know in what positions exactly, because I don't necessarily know these players. But it's probably, as you said, something that will be uncomfortable to play against, and something that's firstly defensively minded. Will try to hit Dortmund on a counterattack, and as I already alluded to, having the matchup between Kostic and Paslak and Papadopoulos, if you will, on that right side from Dortmund's perspective, is not really confidence inducing, if you will. So yeah, it's going to be tricky, and I don't think that Frankfurt are completely without a chance to to snatch a win or a point in this game. So I think my nervousness levels will be at the highest in the first 5 to 10 seconds, because I feel like Dortmund every now and then manage to concede right from the first play as the season starts. So I hope they manage to avoid that. And otherwise, as you said, I hope that Dortmund will be as free-flowing as they can be. Also possession heavy, because that reduces Frankfurt's counter-attacking chances. Although I think Dortmund last season managed to play some nice counter-attacks themselves against the Glasner coached side. So we'll see about that, if Dahoud can have this forward pass to Haaland again. But I'm really excited about this game. I wonder, though, how the first match day in general will go. I mean, it once again starts with Bayern Munich, of course. This time they will play away to Borussia Mönchengladbach. So I'm hoping that Gladbach will do a little bit better than the good old Schalke 04 last time, who I think were clobbered 8-0. Really hope that Gladbach can actually win this like 5-0. But apart from that, obviously we have two new teams in the Bundesliga with VfL Bochum and Sportvereinigung Greuther Fürth. So that should be exciting. Obviously be more exciting if it were still Schalke and Bremen, but I don't make these decisions. So in general, I think Dortmund should be in a title race, especially because I wanted to be, with this being Haaland's last year. I know it's not up to me really whether this works out or not, but I was already hoping for Dortmund making a title push with Sancho and Haaland on the roster, to be honest, but that did not work. So maybe after finding more stability in the back of the Favre years now under the new coach, that can happen. But obviously Bayern for that need to struggle. I don't know how realistic that is. Without Dortmund struggling in a similar fashion, to be honest. And then, of course, Leipzig are still around. And maybe Leverkusen make a pushback. Maybe Gladbach will improve. The only team that I'm really not worried about to be in the top 4 or top 5 this season are Wolfsburg, to be honest. Because I feel like with them playing in the Champions League as well, they will crumble, to be honest. So, obviously, as you mentioned, there are so many new coaches. Matthias, if you look at this Bundesliga season in general, what's your outlook on this season? Do you have any teams where you feel like they could be surprised in the upper regions of the table, or do you think it will be same old, same old?
Well, I mean, if I look at, everyone that's in there, there are a lot of interesting storylines. I think, we're going to have, I just feel like it's going to be a 2-club race for the title. I don't think Leipzig will kind of be there, but Jesse Marsch is not Julian Nagelsmann. And I feel like that's a club in, I don't want to say they're in a state of flux necessarily at this point, of course, but they're a little bit more of an unknown again. I agree with you. I don't expect anything from Wolfsburg, also because I'm not a big Wolfsburg fan, and I hate Marc van Bommel. He's one of the most hated Bundesliga players I have ever had the misfortune of having to watch on television.
Well,
And
Matthias,
so-
if hate would make teams play badly, Schalke would get relegated.
Oh,
well.
yeah. Oh, well. So you're saying there's hope. So Leipzig, Hoffenheim, Wolfsburg, bottom three. Anyway, no, I mean, I'm very curious to see how Stuttgart do this season. Will they take that next step in development? They've got a good coach. They've got a good squad, good young squad. There, I think... I mean, Fürth and Bochum, I'll be honest, I don't see them being anything but down in the relegation zone. I think Bielefeld's going to be right down there again. I'm curious what Union do. I think Augsburg are going to struggle. I do believe Freiburg are going to struggle this season.
Oh, really? I
Köln-
think Freiburg will actually play a solid season, to be honest.
I mean, they're always kind of one of those where I'm like, theoretically, they're supposed to have a bad season, but it's Christian Streich, and somehow he always manages to have a
because they
decent
didn't
season.
really make any changes, to be honest. I feel like
yeah,
I don't know.
but I feel like other teams that are kind of around them have gotten better.
Yeah, but
So-
who, apart from maybe Hertha Berlin, have really done that? Maybe
Yeah,
Augsburg.
I guess
don't
when
know.
I say struggle, like I don't think they're going to push for European places.
Okay, fair
How about
enough.
that?
Yeah,
How about that?
I don't know. Maybe
They're gonna be a
maybe
mid-table
ninth
side.
is probably the highest Freiburg can
Yeah,
go.
mid-table side, somewhere between 9 and 11. And to say that I think that's struggling for Freiburg says a lot about Freiburg, and I do like Christian Streich. And I think the reason why they're going to be somewhere in there is because there are just other teams that are much worse. I'm really curious about Mainz because, again, I think the job Bo Svensson's done there and the general job that's been done there to solidify that club and that ship that was sinking fast and hard was really remarkable. I think they'll be kind of in that Freiburg zone, whereas Köln, I think Köln's saving grace could be the fact that Bochum and Fürth are in the league, because I just don't expect anything from Köln
Yeah, and Bielefeld maybe
at all.
Sort of, this is-
Bielefeld, yeah, that's kind of my bottom area. I think Augsburg will be down there as well. Other than that, yeah, I mean, title will be between Dortmund and Bayern. I mean, when you asked Julian Nagelsmann, he was very confident in saying Bayern will win the Bundesliga. I mean, that's a club and a coach, they just fit together. Whereas Marco Rose said basically the team that at the end is at the top of the table will win the Bundesliga, which I hate an answer like that. But, that's fine, whatever. Steffen Baumgart, I think, will be an interesting thing to watch at Köln. I just don't know if Köln has the wherewithal player-wise. Losing Sebastian Bornau, I think, is a huge loss for them.
Yeah, they
But at
also
least he
lost
said-
Marius Wolf. I feel
Yes.
like Köln only got worse, to be honest.
Correct. Their saving grace, again, could be that there are actually worse teams, quality-wise, in the league. Not that that matters, because if you would put paper on paper last season, Schalke are much better than Bielefeld. But Schalke had bad coaches, no cohesion, and probably the worst injury luck that I've seen in a long time in the league. So that kind of stuff can balance things out. But at the end of the day, I'm going to pick Dortmund to win the Bundesliga because I can't pick Bayern, and I just want Dortmund to do it. And I feel like it could be a season to do it because there's so much flux in the league. I think the other teams that will finish in the top four, I do believe Leipzig will finish in the top four just because the quality is there. And then the other fourth team, I think it's going to be a tight matchup between the usual contenders of Gladbach, Leverkusen, kind of there around. But I'm going to say surprise team for me is going to be Stuttgart. I think Stuttgart will finish 5th or 4th.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I mean, they do have a good scout and sporting director. So yeah, why not? I mean, it's going to be also interesting how Leverkusen do under Gerardo Seoane or whatever his name is, and not I almost said hampered by Peter Bosch, and I think in the end it was Hannes Wolf. Obviously, still a very good side. I think they just lost Leon Bailey, of course, but there's always potential there. They can always play a good season if a couple of things fall into place for them. It's not like Bayer Leverkusen are a team that are like a regular midfield team. I think they're always above average in terms of their squad potential. So yeah, I don't know. I'm more hoping for Gladbach to bounce back, but we'll see. I also honestly I really hope that Frankfurt play a good season, that they at least have a top 7 finish again, and establish themselves sort of as a team that plays on the European stage regularly. Overall, in terms of how competitive the Bundesliga is, I'm fairly happy with it for now. Saying it before the league actually started, but obviously I might change my opinion very quickly. I also think that there will be a bigger cut between the midfield teams and the relegation threatened teams. I really think that Bochum, Fürth, and Bielefeld, and maybe even Cologne will struggle much worse than everybody else. So I think we'll have more of a midfield battle for places that don't matter, and then just a relegation scrap, which just will be bitter. That's sort of the season I expect, and I really do hope that Dortmund won't be the team that stumbles again against so many teams from the lower half of the table. If Dortmund can avoid that, I think they will be actually really, really doing well. And of course, since there are no derby wins to be gained, at least in the Bundesliga, except of course against Bochum, where I 100% expect 6 points. I really want Dortmund to beat Bayern at least once this season. I feel like we've gone through many losses against Bayern, and I think it's time to change that also, since Dortmund have a habit of beating Nagelsmann coached sides. Why not do that again? So yeah, I don't know. I don't like I said, I don't want to look forward too much, since the transfer market is still open, and things can happen overall quite a bit. Even though if you follow me on Twitter, you will know that Dortmund just published their numbers for the financial year 2020-2021, and the total gross revenue went down from 486.9 million from the previous season to 358.6 due to the pandemic. I think Watzke said that Dortmund lose about 4 million per match day without any fans in it, and that more transfers really are not feasible because they don't have the funds for that. In a normal year, he said Dortmund will absolutely be more active on the transfer market, but they just don't see it right now. And his message to all supporters to alleviate this situation was get vaccinated. So there's that. And I also think Michael Zorc gave an interview to Ruhrnachrichten where he quite bluntly said that he doesn't really have any offers on his desk because other clubs are in a similar situation, except for the super rich clubs. Money just is not as loose, and other teams have to really be careful about their budgets. So this is why players like Roman Bürki or Nico Schulz are still sticking around, to be honest. So obviously there have been quite spectacular transfers this transfer season, a lot of record-breaking sums going around. But I think when you really look, a few layers beneath the very top, the creme de la creme of transfers, you will see that a lot of teams are actually quite struggling to especially get rid of players that are not, planned in the squad anymore, but don't have the highest market in a normal year. Matthias, what are you making of this situation? Do you think that Dortmund, despite all, will still maybe make some moves on deadline day when desperation might increase for other clubs somewhere around the world?
Well, I mean, to reiterate your point, I mean, Aki Watzke did say that it's not as bad as they first feared it could be loss-wise. But if we just take the lost revenue, I mean, he's saying about 4 million euros per Bundesliga home match. If you would say equal that roughly in DFB Pokal, you increase it a little bit for Champions League, given how deep Dortmund's Champions League run actually was, that's a loss of revenue that they didn't get, of right around 100 million euros. I mean, think about that. I mean, that's 100 million euros. That is another Dembele type sale. That's another Sancho, Haaland type level sale of revenue that they didn't take in. So not having that, but still paying everybody's salaries, be it players, staff, ticket people, you name it. I mean, they still had to have ushers in the stadium for the home matches just because of security and some people that were there. So they still had costs. It was a little bit lower, but they didn't furlough people like Liverpool or a lot of the uber-rich Premier League clubs did. They didn't lay off a bunch of people like Disney did. So they kept most of their costs at the same level while losing about 100 million euros in revenue. At the same time, though, their losses overall, I think, were around somewhere between 50 and 70 million. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, something like that.
Right in there. I don't see them buying unless they're able to sell. And I don't think it's because of transfer fees. I think it's simply down to wages. Because the one thing people always forget about, they look at Lionel Messi going to PSG, transfer fees are one thing. Wages are the real big one. And that, if you're paying out a 5 or 10-year deal.
Barcelona would attest.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at giving a quality player a 5-year contract and they're making 10 million, you calculate that as 50 million that's going to cost over the length of the contract. The 20 million or 10 million that you'll pay in a transfer fee is laughable compared to those ongoing costs, because it's not just that, it's insurance, doctor fees, maintenance, staffing that goes into it. So you actually take that, however much it is, and you add to it exponentially above that. So a Marco Reus costs even more than what they paid for him in transfer fee and his annual salary, which is, I don't know if it's the highest at the club, but it's right around there. So I don't expect them to buy anybody. There's obviously nobody of quality on a free available. Otherwise, they would have done that. It's like that domino effect. Everybody said, well, when Bornau leaves, then Lacroix will go to, I forget who won him. And then if he goes, then there's money there. And then somehow that's the domino effect that gets Nico Schulz out of Dortmund, and then Dortmund can get Halstenberg. I think it was Lacroix going to Leipzig, and then Halstenberg can leave, but then only if Schulz gets sold. And it's not because of the transfer fee. It's because of the wage bill. It's because of that. And that is always the thing people tend to forget, because it's the less obvious fee. It's not the one that really gets reported. So I don't expect any moves from Dortmund unless they're able to move Roman Bürki, Nico Schulz, Marius Wolf, a few of those players, Thomas Delaney or an Axel Witsel. If those players go, especially someone like Witsel, who's 32 and on a high wage contract, I assume, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure, given where he came from, and they tend to pay a lot.
Well, I know his wages aren't as high as they were in China, but I'm sure they're
correct,
not low.
But they're still high. I mean, we're not talking, like, somebody coming from an Austrian league that's not named Holland, getting their wages. So yeah, that's a very long-winded answer to your very short and concise question. No, I don't expect them to sign anybody unless they can sell a few.
Yeah, no, I like long answers sometimes. So that sort of also concludes everything we more or less have to talk about. Now, obviously, one thing I want to at least mention, because I didn't have the time really to watch the full match, but obviously, Borussia Dortmund's women's team had their first win very historic one, I guess, because, it was the first game ever, even though it was just a friendly against 1860 Munich. But nevertheless, I think about 1,300 fans were there to witness it. 3-1 win, and the goal scorers were Ann-Kathrin Lau, Lea Rogge-Herper, and Annika Herbig. And yeah, I find that's very cool. Borussia Dortmund, if you haven't seen it, but I'm sure you have, broadcasting every game of the women's team on their Twitch channel. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing that rise from the lowest division basically to the Frauen Bundesliga eventually.
It'll be interesting to watch that overall rise, because it's really something. Until somebody mentioned Dortmund is going to have a women's team, I'll be perfectly honest, that was that moment where I went, wait, they haven't had one already? Like, how's that a thing? I mean, I grew up in a small town called Techte, and they have a really good women's team. And how is that not a thing at a club like Borussia Dortmund? So I'm glad they have corrected that, because that should have been a thing a long, long time ago.
Decades too late, really. I also never understood the sentiment of, oh, well, the men are playing football and the women are playing handball. That's just nonsensical, and obviously Dortmund will not go bankrupt running a women's team. I think the opposite will be in the really long term will be the case, where I think if Dortmund manage to do their job well and have a somewhat successful Dortmund women's team, I think they will sell out the Westfalenstadion just as well, because I think women's football is constantly on the rise and becoming more and more popular, and I like watching it, and it's very necessary. And I think, as I said before, it's way too late. So these are the very first baby steps, and I'm just excited to follow it around. And I'm sure we'll have, seeing that they recently did a little thing for the Borussia Dortmund's club-owned podcast in German, obviously, but I feel like there will be some English speakers to be found to talk a bit more about the Dortmund women's team here on our show. So, I guess stay tuned for that, Matthias. I will this time not forget to ask you for a scoreline prediction for Dortmund's match against Eintracht Frankfurt. So now's your chance to get it right.
I am going to say Dortmund win this one 3-1.
Oh man, that was also my prediction. All right, since we only have one center back, I'm saying it's going to be a bit more exciting. It's going to be a 3-2 win for Dortmund. So yeah, I don't know where this will put Dortmund in the table, because I feel like other teams might have a higher win. But I still hope Dortmund really get those 3 points and then, meet Bayern in the Super Cup for the first time. I don't know if we should even preview this game or have an extra dedicated episode for it. But just in case we're not, Matthias, what's your scoreline prediction for that?
Dortmund win 2-0.
All right, Dortmund win 6-0. And with that,
because it really doesn't matter at the end of the day.
No, I really don't care about the Super Cup. I mean, if you win it, it's fun, but it does not really indicate anything. Other than that, I hope everyone stays healthy and no more COVID outbreaks and such. So yeah. Anyway, if you want to follow Matthias on Twitter, if he's ever active, you can do that at Matthias Zug. You can follow me at Stefan Butzko on Twitter. You can follow all of us at Yellowwallpod on Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, please do that on iTunes, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. Obviously, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to support this podcast financially, again, go to patreon.com/theyellowwall. In the meantime, this will be everything for this week. We shall be back either before the Super Cup for a little fun episode or afterwards, and then discuss 2 games. Anyway, as always, thank you for listening and goodbye.